Hey everybody, welcome back to Health Matters, brought to you in conjunction with Cipla. I'm your host, Ryan O'Connor, and you might notice that there's a lot of wheezing, sneezing going around at the moment. And a lot of people will say, well, why? Why do I have runny eyes? Is this time of year? Is it allergy season, as they call it? Today, we're going to learn more about allergic rhinitis, the cause and the cures. And to help with that, we got Dr. Corli Lodder back with us. And it's always nice to have the good doctor back. Founder of the Allergy and Asthma Clinic in George in the Western Cape, also a GP with a special interest in allergic diseases, and of course, a member of the SA Allergic Rhinitis Working Group, a focus group of the Allergy Society of South Africa. Doctor, so good to be talking to you once again.
Thank you, Ryan. Good morning to you and to the audience.
Now, let's get to the root of it. What is the cause of allergic rhinitis, or AR? Is it the same as hay fever?
Okay, so allergic rhinitis is a chronic inflammatory condition of the lining of the nose and the sinus cavities. So that inflammation, if we call it allergic rhinitis, is obviously caused by some allergen. So it's something in the environment that was really not ever the enemy, because let's face it, grass pollen and tree pollen and cats and dog dander is really not the enemy. Sure. But some of us has got what we call an atopic tendency. It might be running in the genes, and there's a lot of environmental things nowadays that also causes that. So the immune system now makes an allergy antibody, an IgE antibody toward that. And now there is a battle, but there was no battle to be fought in the first place. So it kind of causes now chronic inflammation in the lining of those mucous membrane lining. It's a difficult picture for people to actually understand, because it's not, we don't have a picture of the epithelial layer of a nasal cavity. But if we can think about the skin is a barrier, and if you think about people that has got eczema and dry skin and it's broken skin, that's what's happening with the lining of the epithelium in the airways. And that chronic inflammation can now cause a lot of symptoms.
Gotcha.
So the allergens can be tree pollen, grass pollen, can be mites, house dust mite or mold, or the animals, and a whole bunch of things. So if we think about hay fever, that's a term that people usually use when they sneeze and itch and have got watery noses. But it is similar, and traditionally that will be the people that are allergic to pollen. So it's seasonal. It's only some time of the year that I'm sneezing and itching. And if it is more constant inflammation, people tend to call that I've got sinus. Okay, but actually that whole basket is allergic inflammation of the upper airways.
It's interesting you say that, because a lot of people blame, obviously, pollen, and they go, if it is pollen, well, then why am I getting it the whole year instead of just seasonally, to your point?
Sure. Okay, so that is really fascinating. So we've got different people, and our immune responses react differently. So you can have one person that is only allergic to pollen. Okay, so those patients most likely will only have symptoms now as the season change and we are going into spring with the pollen. But now you can have a patient that are what we call multiple sensitized. So they are allergic to pollen, but they are also allergic to house dust mite and mold and the cat that is inside the house, and I'm breathing those allergens the whole year round, but I kind of develop a tolerance for that amount, and also sometimes, unfortunately, also tolerance to I can handle that amount of symptoms. So it's there, but it's not bothersome. But now I'm kind of pushing the limit. Now the season change, and I am allergic to the pollen, but I'm also allergic to something else that just extends that period of the inflammation. And then there's also this whole thing about the wonderful country that we live in. Because if we think about the climate in the Western Cape, where we are, and in Cape Town, where it's mainly winter rainfall area and the winelands. And then we compare it to the garden route where I am, where we have kind of rain and anywhere there the whole year round. And then we go up to the north of South Africa, Gauteng and even Mpumalanga, where it is really dry in winter and only raining in spring, summertime. So now that is where the wonderful initiative from the Real Pollen Count of South Africa, Professor Johnny Peter and the Lung Institute of at the UCT in a university actually started to do pollen surveillance in our country. And the website, the Real Pollen Count of South Africa, actually have got different areas in our country. There's 9 centers where the pollen count is being monitored. So you can go and look on that website. Every Friday it's updated. What is the pollen like in your area? Because that will differ from when your symptoms might be worse. And I must just give thanks to CIPLO once again to actually getting involved with this project and also helping us to have a pollen counter in George so that we can also have a look there. So those the information that they got from that, they also made pollen calendars for us, looking at the data from the previous years and even through the drought that the Western Cape had, to looking at patterns so that we can actually see when is it the pollination time of the area where you stay, because that will differ.
Doctor, what's quite interesting is that you mentioned in there that, and I take it a lot of people fall in this category where they know their symptoms, they get it, they may experience it either seasonally or throughout the course of the year, but they think it's okay. It's okay that I feel like this. I don't need to do anything about it. Number one, is it wise just to leave it? And then having said that, are there other complications that can stem from this if not treated?
Okay, so that is a interesting question. So let's do it in those 2 parts that you actually asked it for.
Okay.
Is it wise? It can be irritating for yourself, but you get used to that. But I always laugh and say that, remember, for a lot of people, the symptoms might be not a lot, but your nose is in your face. So especially if you're a girl, but I don't think we can only call it a feminine thing. It is in your face. You work with people. Even that little bit of sneezing and blocked nose is going to be irritating for you. So that might be an issue for your self-esteem. But also, it's not only in your face. If you are sniffing and sneezing all the time, it's also in the face of other people, which might be irritating for them. But that is just irritating. But why is it not wise? Because any chronic inflammation can be detrimental. If we think about back to the COVID pandemic, so the people that went into really having trouble, we said there was a cytokine storm that caused inflammation that actually progressed. So the inflammation causes that damage to the mucous membrane lining, and that now opens the door for secondary symptoms like infection. And we also live in an era where we have to look after our antibiotic groups that we have very particularly because of the resistance that are growing. So we don't want to lose that. And if you actually have got that open door, you get more viral infections and you are getting more bacterial infections, and that can actually lead to antibiotic abuse and also making other people sick, as we also learned from COVID. So that is bad. But chronic inflammation going over to, can it lead to complications? Yes. Chronic inflammation is detrimental. So besides the fact that you will get infections and you will sneezing and be symptomatic, that is irritating, if a child, for instance, have got a blocked nose, so they adapt with it to that because everybody in the family has got blocked noses and sneezing. They actually develop abnormally because they go to sleep and they mouth breathe. So the palate actually develops abnormally, and then they will have problems, malocclusion of the mouth. And those parents, I usually say, well, if we don't do anything about this, you'll have to save money because the orthodontist is going to cost a whole lot of money, and that child's going to need braces because it will be a problem. It can also lead to the formation of polyps in the nose itself or in the nasal cavities, and then you need surgery for that. And then also another interesting phenomenon is that some people with allergies only have got allergic rhinitis. It's only the upper airways. But some of them now develop asthma because it's the same lining starting at the tip of the nose all the way to the lung. And we can't predict who is going to have only allergic rhinitis and who is going to progress to asthma. So if we actually treat the allergic rhinitis, we can, in some instances, prevent the development of asthma. So no, it's not a good idea not to treat.
Doc, is it okay to have take medicine for the whole year? Is it okay that patients use medication all year round? And if not, when then should one then start or perhaps stop?
Okay, so the medication that we advise from the Allergic Rhinitis Working Group, also the guidelines of South Africa, that is safe to use, even if it is whole year round, because we don't want to lose control. We don't want the inflammation to cause secondary complications. But then we have to stick to what is in the guidelines. Your second generation antihistamines are safe to use, and you don't really develop tolerance. A lot of people will say that I use the one antihistamine for a few months and then I use another one because it doesn't work anymore. It probably doesn't work because the inflammation is more. Antihistamine will only work for sneeze and itch because it blocks the histamine, and histamine causes sneezing and itching. If we want to treat that chronic inflammation properly, we need the intranasal steroid spray. That will then be the anti-inflammatory. And because we are using it topically, local in the nose, it's not systemically absorbed. So you're not going to have the detrimental effects of having to drink steroid tablets or having a steroid injection that can actually cause insulin resistance and cataracts and obesity and all kinds, and osteoporosis. So we don't want that. So the mometasone and the fluticasone, budesonide, cyclosinide, they are all safe to use even in children. We also need to not forget to use your intranasal salt water spray, because remember again the dry skin of eczema, the nasal mucosa is exposed to the outside world. So we need to hydrate that. And also we need to kind of wash the nose before you put the medication in so that it can penetrate better. So the patients that are allergic to indoor allergens and pollen, they can easily use this all the time. But now we get to the patients that tell me, but I really don't want to use it all the time because it is really only pollen. But it's a slow process. You don't go from having no inflammation to full-blown inflammation. So the season is changing in the background already. So pollination of trees specifically already started. So we're breathing that. So the inflammation is getting there. And then one morning I wake up and I can't breathe. So we should start at least 4 weeks prior to the peak pollen season. So again, back to the pollen count of South Africa and the graphs, so that we can predict. And that is why we are, as allergists, we are scientists. So I do want to test you. I do need to know what you are allergic to, because then we can do treatment planning. A very interesting thing is also that we just enjoyed the Olympic Games a few weeks ago. And if you think about the outdoor athletes, from one country to the next, from one season to the next. So if we are not aware what those athletes are allergic to, they can really have problems breathing. So now they're not sleeping well. They already had to sleep in the village with bad beds. So now they can't breathe well because they blocked because of the pollen of that area. And then they have to go and run and win a gold medal tomorrow.
Yep.
That's pretty unfair. So if you think about your children and yourself, if you want to excel in life, good quality of sleep, good quality of life, being active, we need to read what we're allergic to. We need to read the pollen counts, and we have to start early enough and then continue that whole time, because that's the other thing. Then we start treating, and then I'm good, and then I stop, and then we lose control again. So rather all the time, or at least 4 weeks before the season, and then till the end of the peak pollination season.
I'll tell you what, it's been another incredible chat with you, Doctor. A breath of fresh air, some would say. And that's what we hope for you listening to this. If you are going into that time of the year, as we all are, where you battle with AR or any type of reaction to the changing of the season. And importantly, know the pollen in your area, thanks to the fantastic research that's been done. Dr. Lodder, thanks a million. Once again, time has flown, and here we are at the end of another amazing episode of Health Matters. If you like this, please give us the thumbs up. All the episodes proudly brought to you by Cipla, and they're all available for you to download and watch on YouTube and various other social media outlets. Doctor, thanks for your time, and we'll chat again soon.